This was a very difficult list to work with. Tribal characters can be rather scarce, unless you count so many M-rated games which often have a large diversity. Sadly, most of them aren't for me. Tribal characters are of course based off of Native Americans that has civilized this country long before us, and are still an integral part of it. Plus they make to be great hunters, stealths, or even sometimes magic users, and their culture is unique and kind of entrancing. And since Thanksgiving's around the corner, I'd like to present my top 10 tribal characters in video games. Same rules apply, only for games I played, one per franchise, and of course they must be related in some ways to Indians. Time to draw out our drums, arrows, and tomahawks. Let's do this! Beginning this list is Aku Aku from Crash Bandicoot Breath of Cortex. I was never a huge fan of Crash Bandicoot, although this was my first and only PS2 game I'd encountered in the series. As far as I can remember, Aku Aku was seen in traversing most levels serving as an extra shield for Crash, if only for a little while until he takes on a few blows. He used to appear beside Crash doing just that, although he had his mask full when dealing with Crunch and the Elementals. There was also a moment in which if Crash collects 3 masks while Aku Aku is next to him, he'll become invincible for a short while wearing it as a mask. It's only 10 as I'm not a huge fan of the series, and I only seen him briefly. But it's just enough to qualify him as a tribal character, seeing his regal style. According to the Bandicoot wiki, he was once a shaman and fought off evildoers with magic, while also having an evil brother, Uka Uka. Somehow their spirits left their bodies and inhabited ancient tribal masks, making them immortal, thus Aku's appearance. Sadly, the series didn't really catch my interest, much like the other PlayStation mascots like Spyro, Ratchet, and Clank. I want to place you higher, little guy, but I just don't have any experience to put you any higher. While I usually have a dislike for the Lightfoot Tribe in Star Fox Adventures, they still make the cut at number 9. They seem to be the most tribal species in the series, complete with their regal looks, living in wigwams, and having a tribal clan-like structure. They're run by Chief Lightfoot, which does have a similar appearance to the Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park. Most of the members look more like Compsognathus, as they're swift and are similar to chickens. You first encounter one at Cape Claw, who the bastard distracts a sharp-claw cannon onto Fox, cowers, and then accuses him as a thief for stealing their little stone carvings. They also ambushed Fox and Tricky after they left Cape Claw to reunite a spellstone, after hearing a baby's cries. They're masters of stealth here. These guys are merciless to outsiders. You'd be lucky if the Cloud Runner should save you. Then, the Chieftain challenges you to 2 tests in order to get their Krazoa spirit. From the test of speed, which requires complete memorization locating all the totem poles, and the test of strength in which their big bad Lightfoot challenges you in a button-mashing contest. I never liked the Lightfoot Tribe, as they're brutal to outsiders, have a snarky, pompous attitude counting all of them, and they're masters of stealth and abduction while being so naive and cruel towards others. They do share some interesting traits similar to Indians and the Na'vi in Avatar, but I never really gave them a second thought once I accomplished the test of fear and escaped their primitive village of torture. The closest I can get for a tribal representative from the Final Fantasy juggernaut was Kirmahri from Final Fantasy X. Just his appearance using a spear as his primary weapon, and his mannerisms making him qualify as such. While he does possess skills relating to a dragoon, he does have a strong sense of honor and can be very overprotective at times. After being self-exiled from Mount Gagazet over the dishonor of his broken horn and not being a strong Ronso leader, he found a wounded Auron at the Xanarkin ruins, and he requested him to protect Yuna and take her to Besaid from Beville to live a peaceful life as a summoner, since she's the daughter of one of Auron's friends, Braska. Kirmahri did just that and has been a surrogate father to her ever since, even to the point unheartedly speaking on account of his wounded spirit and his angst when others get involved in his problems. He eventually warms up during the pilgrimage, and finally having his chance of redemption at his home, where he stole and fought against the proud young Ronso, Byran and Yankei. The former honored his success, but not before most of his people were destroyed by Seymour. After the pilgrimage was over with Sin and Yu Yevon erased from existence, Kirmahri then becomes the new clan leader of the Ronso tribe. Because of his small stature and broken horn, done by a brutal scrimmage with Byran, he was later successful, never letting his duties be in vain. He remains at number 8 since I'm turned off by his aggression towards others. He's antisocial and gets feisty easily, and it was a slow process. Plus he reminds me of Keen at times. Still, with a huge devotion, courage, unique blue magic capabilities, a caring heart, and skills in combat, Kirmahri Ronso definitely makes it on here. When I was a kid, there were many turn-ons relating to tribal concepts, such as the Montana miniseries from Sesame Street, and even the enticing African dance in the park. At first sight and sound, they seemed rather enthralling and a bit arousing to me. And being at a reservation once. And another element during my childhood were the spear guys from Yoshi's Island, also known as Jungle Guys. Yeah, they seem to be like bland stereotypes, but I never cared. And Yoshi's Island was actually their own debut in the Mario and Yoshi series. As soon as I'd seen them once I came to the jungle levels, I'd always hesitate and just watch them dance around. They often hold up tall spears, forcing Yoshi to avoid jumping on them, and possess shields, grassy shirts, and painted marks on their masks. Most of them do their signature chant, which you're listening to right now. They're only 7 because they just function like any typical enemy. Still, they can be a tricky obstacle for Yoshi to traverse through without being hit and losing baby Mario. Still though, just looking at their exotic appearance from other Shy Guys, and watching them dance and chant were some of the turn-ons I'd had growing up. It was just hard to resist them, which was why they were in my tribal ceremonies. Even the Spear Girl and a couple ones. The Chozo, also known as the Birdman race, were the closest concepts I consider from the Metroid series. They are well advanced, though ancient and mysterious bird-like sapients that used to live in peaceful civilizations across several planets in the cosmos, such as Talon 4, SR-388, and most notably Planet Zebes, before it was overrun by space pirates. In fact, they were the ones who actually created the Metroids and Mother Brain, believe it or not. The Chozo do have some attractive and regal looks onto them, and they functioned as a closely knit clan, even when they took in the orphan Samus Aran and raised her to be a fine warrior, in which she was chosen to be, even gifting her their own artifact, the Power Suit. They have several traits much like Native Americans, as they can be either warlike and proud, while also having amazing shamanistic abilities, and be the most versatile explorers in the whole universe. They're also effective when it comes to training, as they've made Samus into an incredible warrior, even surpassing their own skills. They have colonized many planets and landscapes, without being barbaric like the space pirates. They also share knowledge amongst other races, even those who aren't as advanced as them, even developing their unique language while also expressing their rituals, adventures, and discoveries through art and writing. Unfortunately, since the creation of the Metroids, the harmful incidents grew out of hand and were never intentioned to inflict danger, which caused the Chozo to disband and soon become a rare species. The Chozo are mostly a sacred race in the Metroid universe, with neat concepts like communicating in a special fashion, having a tight relationship in their clan even with their creations, and shredding it onto other alien races as if they were their own, being promising honorable warriors, while also being shamanistic and colonizing without intentionally overrunning other civilizations is just intriguing. Aside from their regal symbolic appearances, I consider them as tribal characters because of their different and awesome ways of life. Mumbo Jumbo is a very helpful ally and shaman in Banjo-Kazooie. I would consider his rival Humba Wumba, but I never cared for the sequel. Besides, I always loved Mumbo's skills over hers any day. Anyway, Mumbo was first seen at the summit in Mumbo's Mountain, the first level of Banjo-Kazooie. In his comfy hut there, as well as in other levels, he has a strong loyal bond with the bear and bird, and gives them awesome transformations by giving him Mumbo tokens found throughout each level. Mumbo's spells are always fun to use, though they can only go as far as going outside to Gruntilda's lair. And believe me, they're so much better than his bitter competitors. Mostly as a termite in Mumbo's Mountain, a crocodile in Bubble Gloop Swamp, a pumpkin in Mad Monster Mansion, a walrus in Freezy Z Peak, and bee in Click Clock Wood. He takes great pride in his abilities, especially when they tend to work. Heck, even learned his skills as a prominent student at the Handsome Shaman Institute. I know, weird. It was also rumored he taught Gruntilda how to use magic, but she stuck with the black arts and turned Mumbo's head into a skull. I feel sorry for the guy sometimes. He's always an interesting character to be around, despite the fact that English isn't his first language, never mentions anyone's names, and describes them with code names, speaks in third person, and makes hilarious jokes of his transformations. He holds his strong loyalty, friendship, pride, and shaman skills in high regard, which is something a lot of tribal people do. And Mumbo Jumbo is entertaining and cool when he does just that. We can't possibly miss out on Tikal the Echidna for the list. I grew fascinated with her ever since her debut in Sonic Adventure DX, and it's stayed that way ever since. She's the majestic princess of the Knuckles tribe, and the peaceful daughter to the wrathful Kamek. She's cute, nature-loving, and very helpful as you see her throughout the game, and she used to be a member of her dying race 3,000 years ago, always feeling insecure and attempting to prevent a travesty set by her tyrannical old man that'll soon kill all her race, even the beloved Chow. Their guardian, Chaos, went rogue after she managed to seal him along with her own spirit inside the Master Emerald as soon as the corrupt Kamek stole it and the other Chaos Emeralds. A lot of her sacred teachings were passed down by her grandmother, the pacifist of the Knuckles clan, including the legends of the Emeralds, Master Emerald, the Chow,
the 7 emeralds are the servers. Chaos is power enriched by the heart. The controller serves to unify the chaos.
That means that if the user has a positive or negative intention on using the chaos's power, it would affect the emeralds and perhaps the world as well, like the Triforce in the Zelda series. During the game, she functions as a spiritual guide, or more like a ball of light, assisting the heroes, even giving them some hallucinations of her troubled past. She also appeared as her divine spirit when Chaos, the Chow's guardian, transformed into perfect chaos and wreaked over Station Square. She wished to trap him again, but Sonic had a good point. It'll only worsen the monster's anger, so he used the power of the emeralds to neutralize it instead. With that, Tikal showed Chaos his kind is still alive and well cared for. With a more serene mindset, it and Tikal vanished along with his volatile spirit, restoring peace to the Chows. Tikal and her concept were based off of Mayan culture. Examples? Tikal's the name of the ruined Maya city in Guatemala, which means place of voices, and it's integral since Tikal functions as a spiritual guide in hallucinations, as well as a ball of light during the game. Kamek was loosely based on the Inca sun deity and city of the Inca Empire. The pyramid resembles the city of Tikal, and the Lost World levels have certain elements to Inca culture, like the rotating snake and jade. How awesome is that? Bottom line, Tikal's one of the perfect examples of a tribal character. Aside from her regal attire and the nice Mayan concepts, she follows the secret arts of her kind without using them for dominance. Its culture is stylized like any tribal person, and she has great wisdom, a pure heart, and some shamanistic skills to boot. Plus she's as cute as a button. No wonder she's a part of my tribal ceremony art. Oh man, aside from Tikal, the top three are very important. Sheik from Ocarina of Time is one of the perfect contenders for the list. After Link and Navi head out from the Chamber of Sages after the 7-year slumber, they come across the last survivor of the Sheikah tribe. He performs as Link's guide as the Hylian awakens the remaining 5 sages, in which he describes 1 in a deep forest, 1 in a high mountain, 1 in a vast lake, 1 in the house of the dead, and 1 inside a goddess of the sands. He first instructed Link to head to his home, the Kakariko village, in order to obtain a sacred weapon in order to access the first temple. From there, as Link meets him in the sacred forest meadow, he instructs him on each of the warping songs on his golden harp that'll bring him near each temple Ganon has laid a curse over, excepting the Temple of Time. He also tends to have an interesting dialect as he describes how time affects those that use it, whether it be how slow or fast time can move for each person, or that Link holds time in his hands as the hero of time, or how a strong bond can guide him on which way to go. I always loved his time quotes, by the way. Despite his regal appearance, he proves to be an excellent fighter in the Smash series, ever since his debut in Melee. He fights more like a ninja, rather than be magic-based, and he can transform into, I know I'm spoiling this, into the Princess of Hyrule Zelda. Regardless, Impa did an amazing job tutoring her, using Sheik as an alter ego and a disguise keeping her away from Ganondorf for the most part. I would consider the fierce deity, the rest of the Sheikah, Bongo Bongo, or even some of the Gerudo, or perhaps the Gorons, sort of. But Sheik I know the most, and he does fit the category nicely. Having some regalness, the mightiness of a warrior, his sacred teachings, and just the beauty of it all, makes him qualify enough for this list.
Do you understand, Link?
Grey Cloud, better known as Nightwolf, has climbed his way to 2nd place. I have always grown infatuated with this guy ever since I first saw him in his debut game, Mortal Kombat 3. At first he may seem to be like any typical Indian warrior and shaman, but believe me, Mortal Kombat has always exceeded our expectations. He's a well-known hero, warrior, shaman, and historian amongst his people. He was from the Lakota Sioux tribe, then from the fictional tribe Matoka, since it was pointed out in Mortal Kombat 11. And when he received visions from the Great Spirit in Raiden, he devoted his life to save Earthrealm from Shao Kahn's destruction and emergence of it in Outworld. His voices were spot on, and his design, and his moves are incredible to use. While he does draw on internal-external energy for his prowess, his weapons are made the same way. From souls, he can conjure green energy as a bow and arrow, to a tomahawk, to a dagger, to a move similar to Johnny's, even deflecting projectiles from his chest, like Motaro! Also, he has some of the most merciful fatalities than any other fighter. For instance, he can actually send other fallen fighters to the Netherrealm, or simply just conjure lightning and electrocute the soul out of them. That should be more like Raiden's fatality, but still. I always love his animality, and he rips his enemies to shreds as a red wolf. That is just sheer awesomeness! He was just a smash hit next to the tool called cybernetics. But that's not all. While he did have a more questionable role in Defenders of the Realm, as both a shaman but more as some computer nerd tracking portals, I still like him as he is. I love his pet wolf Makeba, and aside from the unusual emergence, he had a better role to play honoring others joining the team, like Sub-Zero, or even having better sense than the rest of the combatants while succeeding over Quan Chi and his warmongering gem. His phenomenal portrayal made me like him even more, as one of my topmost favorite Mortal Kombat characters. However, there was one small tiny detail that led him to the silver trophy rather than the gold. As a kid, I fantasized on having an ankylosaur and a Melody, but I'm telling ya, he can be a real obnoxious jerk. This is not how Nightwolf should be portrayed. It was interesting having an actual Native American play the role, but the mannerisms were just awful. I really blame the writers and director for showing him how contrary he is. Aside from that though, I freaking love Nightwolf, and I can safely say he's my all-time favorite combatant and Native American character. From his interesting soul and lightning manipulation, being in tune with nature, animals, even wolves, having such amazing moves that make him stand out, having a stoic though noble personality, even how inciting his outfit is, he is not number one. The Pokemon themselves, Rufflet and Braviary. Oh yeah! The two birds of Unova Braviary made their way to number one. Much like the previous entries, I grew infatuated as soon as I encountered them. They look awesome and have unique concepts related to any tribal character or person. Only portrayed as birds, specifically eagles. Rufflet, as the eaglet Pokemon, is known to have sharp claws that can crush berries, even shelter and pluck out their insides. And, much like the Saiyans in Dragon Ball Z, they're natural-born warriors. They can challenge any opponent, no matter how strong it is, and they tend to do it out of recklessness than courage and honor. It's also said they can grow stronger after each battle, even after fainting or getting injured, which is kinda strange. Although it may seem obvious since the eaglet's main stat is attack, starting at 83, not too shabby with a 350 base stat total, and it sure is a lifesaver of those pesky fighting ground and ghost types. Rufflet may seem to be a naive baby Pokemon, but once it evolves into Braviary at level 54, oh baby! Braviary is known as the Valiant Pokemon. Its main stats are attack and HP because of its own ruthless determination, and it's said if it bears more scars, it gains more respect. It is known as the Soldier in the Sky as it is brave, honorable, prideful, though hot-headed, and is willing to sacrifice itself even for the sake of its comrades. Kinda like another certain someone I know. No worries, it doesn't usually apply in the games that often, although both Rufflet and Braviary are 100% male, and it's shown they can't breed with the female equivalent Volibee and Mandibuzz, the next line in the Unova Pokedex. Kind of a shame. As normal types, they can learn a plethora of different kinds of moves. Rufflet and Braviary are based on the bald eagle, the symbol of America, and Rufflet's plume is inspired by Native American culture. Braviary's name origin shares the trait by Native American warriors, even Indian braves, and the eagle is their sacred animal. I used to fantasize my own Pokemon Dream Team way back for Final Fantasy IV, and Rufflet, aka Stallwing, a mashup of Stalwart and Wing, also evolved into a Braviary. While they may be weak against a few types like Electric, Rock, or Ice, that's only 3! Just their looks, capabilities, concepts, and epicness alone makes both Rufflet and Braviary as a couple of my favorite Pokemon and tribal characters. I'm the Ecron writer, and these are the top 10 tribal characters that represent those enticing Indians, Native Americans, and I must join them and play their drums. Oh, and as a rebuttal to my toxic bully, Maggie Rook, who thought my Final Fantasy IV OCs were bad portrayals.
Hey, fuck you.
You feel better now?
Yeah, I kinda do actually.